Well, here we are again, folks. This is Tim Adams and Alpha Public Adjusters. And Tim has a unique story that not very many people have as to his pathway to the place that he's at now, being in business for himself and been a part of a family for over 40 years, doing business in the West Texas area, mainly the Lubbock area, and roofing, adjusting, and there's a whole different nomenclature and way to do business as to what Tim does with public adjusting, and it's very exciting to learn about. But what's really intriguing to me is the adversities that Tim has gone through to get to this point, which is fascinating. We've got a background in a similar discipline in karate. Some of the same people kind of in the past that I got to do some training with, and Tim did some training with, and actually had several of his own schools. Was very interesting to me to learn about. And so we'll just kind of start with Tim. How did you get starting in what you do today as far as business?
My wife and I are both from Dodge City, Kansas, born and raised Dodge Cityans. And we came to work for my dad's roofing company in Lubbock in 1980. Before he went in the roofing business in 69, he was an insurance claims manager for Mid-Continent Casualty and owned a couple of independent adjusting agencies, which is the reason for the background in insurance claims. And so I came to work for his roofing company in 1980 in Lubbock and worked on the roof for 5 years. He knew he was going to put me in sales, but he wanted me to know what I was talking about. So he put me on roofing crews for 5 years, and then I ran crews. And then some years after that, just in a less than full-time situation. So in 1985, he pushed me into the roofing sales end of it and started teaching me how to handle disputed hail claims, since that was his background. And that became my specialty. And all modesty aside, I kind of became the go-to guy if there was a problem with a hail claim on a roof in West Texas. And I did that for a number of years as a roofing contractor, when you could still do that legally in Texas as a roofing contractor. The law has since changed and that's now illegal. But I did that for a lot of years. And then in 2013, initially the law changed with House Bill 1183, and it became a misdemeanor for a roofing contractor to negotiate a claim with an adjuster. He can still do some things. He can talk about the damage and he can talk about his estimate, but he can't get into the policy at all, which is where the real meat and potatoes of settling a claim is. And he's just barred from doing those things. And so I could see the writing on the wall and knew that the game had kind of changed. So I was going to be forced to either stay in the roofing business where I'd been for 40 years or do the part of it that I really enjoyed the most, which is negotiating disputed hail claims. So I formed Alpha Public Adjusters in 2017 and got my public adjuster's license. And here we are. This is what I do all day, every day.
That's exciting. And, Tim was telling me that this is a very unique part of the business of real estate. And so, when storms come through, which always seems to happen in West Texas, anywhere really, but really here, there's certain times of the year where things kind of kick it up a notch, and you get tornadoes, you get hail, lots of wind, this is one of the windiest places in North America. And so Tim's got a unique ability to come and diagnose a problem that someone doesn't even know exists. Is that right?
Yes, and it's no coincidence that my dad ended up here in the roofing business. He was of course, his background is as an insurance claims manager, and the reason he went in the roofing business in Denver in 69 was because the Front Range of Colorado is the number one spot for hailstorms, and that's a roofer's meat and potatoes. That's where a lot of them make the money. So, and then he sold out and had a 7-year non-compete agreement in 1980. And had to go someplace else and set up shop. And the number two spot for hailstorms back then, it probably still is, was West Texas. And so he set up shop in Lubbock with his roofing company in 1980. And it's just, we get hailstorms every year. We had June 5th of this year of 25, we had probably the most massive hailstorm I've seen in my 45 years of doing this work. We get lots of big hailstorms in Lubbock. We had the big one in June 23rd of 23 and May 18th of 20. And we get lots of big hailstorms, but this one in June 5th was unique in that it had a lot of wind with it. It had a wind component up to 105 miles per hour winds, which drove the hailstones into the sides of buildings and broke out windows. And it was really, really a unique storm in my 45-year history of doing this work.
Yeah, and so that's the one that was the 3 tornadoes, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yep. So that was recent, folks, and that was interesting. That was a very interesting time here.
Yeah, I knew, our work tends to lag behind a hailstorm. We were still working claims from the 23 storm when this one hit in June. And, sometimes they just take a while. And it typically, there's a lag of time. Typically, the policyholder, the say it's a commercial property owner, he thinks, well, why would I pay this public adjuster 10% of my settlement? I'll just go try to do this myself. And it takes him a little bit of time to realize that that's not working out like he thought, and he's getting underpaid because it's just the way the system is set up. And so our work tends to lag the hailstorm a little bit. And now some of our more savvy customers, they own a lot of commercial real estate, and they know to bring us in right from the start. So we were busy even on June 6th and have been swamped since then. And we'll still be doing work on this June 5th claim for a couple of years.
Well, that's exciting. Tim's also got something else that he does that we haven't talked about yet. He's a pilot. Is that right?
Yes, I grew up flying with my dad around Southwest Kansas, and I knew I always wanted to be a pilot. And I got my private pilot's license here in Lubbock in 1985 out at Town and Country Air Park. It's Lubbock Executive Air Park now, and it was kind of an interesting process because I didn't realize what a lousy pilot my dad was until I started taking ground school myself and realized that you're really not supposed to land in a pasture once a month out of fuel. You're supposed to try to avoid that. But I remember growing up, every time we turned around, all us kids would be in the back seat of the airplane, and he'd be landing in a pasture and call my Uncle Roy to bring us some gas. And he's out stepping off the distance between the airplane and the fence to figure out if he could get it off the ground. And if not, how many of us kids had to get out and wait for a ride. So, but anyway, yes, I got my private pilot ticket in 1985 here in Lubbock.
And so with that, he mentioned also having a license for drone technology as well.
Yes, I have a Part 107 drone license, and you have to have that to use a drone in business these days, and probably 90% of the people don't. And the FAA really doesn't enforce that a lot, but since I was already in their database as a private pilot, I felt like I need to get the Part 107 license. So if people think, well, if I just don't sell the pictures I take, or if I don't sell video, I don't need the 107 license, and that's not true. If you use the video or photos you take with a drone in furtherance of your business in any way, you have to have a Part 107 license. So we have that license.
So, and that's something that you use with your business as well to help people
use it regularly. We have a thermal drone that has a FLIR thermal imager on it, and that's really a high-tech way. It lets us see moisture that's trapped under a built-up roof. You get up on a built-up roof, tar and gravel as they call them, and they get up on a gravel roof, and you can see moisture that's on the surface, but you can't see what's under it. With the thermal imager, and especially with our thermal drone, we can see the moisture that's trapped under the roof that the naked eye can't see. So that's a valuable tool for us.
That's very interesting. What's the advantage to the property owner for that, to know that?
Well, because typically the insurance companies try to minimize the claim. They're trying to pay out the least amount they can. That's kind of the adjuster's job, although they won't agree with that. That's my dad trained adjusters and he managed them, and that's their job is to, let's just call it, manage the claim. And so if they're trying to pay for a repair, let's say there's damage to some parapet walls or some cant strips from the hail because there was a wind component with it, and they just want to do some spot repairs, maybe replace the flashings, I bring in my drone and I say, no, there's trapped moisture here, there's trapped moisture there. Here's a map, a colored map of all the trapped moisture that's under this roofing system in the substrate that you can't see with the naked eye. And this is what no major manufacturer of roofing material will let you roof over the top of trapped moisture. And so we show that there's trapped moisture that you can't see with the naked eye, and oftentimes that helps us to get the claim paid.
And that's outstanding for the actual business owner and the real estate investor or whoever owns that real estate. That's a huge advantage to them because sometimes they don't think or don't have the technology to see that. But that's what you do.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's, today one of the roofing systems that's really popular on low slope commercial roofs is a TPO. It's a single ply membrane type roof system, and it's really hides hail damage really well. They stand up to a decent amount of hail, but typically you can look at a TPO roof, and we did one on a bank building here at 98th and Slide, the old First Bank and Trust building. It's UMB Bank now. And even the roofer said there's no hail damage on this roof after the 23 storm. And I told them that's virtually impossible. I've worked a lot of claims within a half a block of there. And that's virtually impossible. Let us have a look at it. And sure enough, we opened the roof system up and found the damage to the underside of the membrane. And that happens a lot on TPO. They get denied wrongly because there's no damage on the surface that you can see. But if we cut out a 12-inch by 12-inch roof sample, open that up on three sides, now we can see the damage on the bottom side. Well, if it's damaged, it's damaged. That roofing system's compromised. And even if you can't see the damage on the top, if we can find damage on the bottom, the insurance company has to pay for that roof.
Yeah, and so Tim also has proprietary methods, that he utilizes to be able to show you exactly what's going on with that roof that obviously we won't get into on this, but they've got a unique way of doing it that nobody else knows about, that nobody else can do, which is very unique. I was learning about that, recently from Tim, and I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. So how long does it take when someone becomes aware that they might need your services to actually get you on site doing something for them?
It depends on whether it's residential or commercial. Typically with residential, it's more of a commodity type roof system, and the damage is, typically whether it be the insurance company has a requirement of 8 strikes per roofing square or 10. It's kind of a commodity, and we can see everything that's there. And a commercial roof claim's different. With a residential claim, it's okay to let the adjuster come out and look at it, see what it's going to do, then bring us in, and we'll go in and mop up and get the rest of the money that they didn't pay. On a commercial roof, it's better to bring us in from the very beginning. It's really important on a commercial roof that we establish the claim, and there's a concept in the insurance claims called a loss reserve. And if the adjuster comes in and underpays the claim and then therefore automatically sets a artificially low loss reserve, it just makes it more difficult through the whole process, and they'll fight harder. But if I get involved from the very beginning, I can help. I can say, no, this is not a $250,000 claim. This is a $2 million claim. And we help the insurance adjuster set the loss reserve in the right range. And it tends to help them to not argue the claim so much. And it helps them. It also helps to build the file. If the adjuster walks in, I want him to see this guy knows 50 times more about this claim than I'm ever going to know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a psychological advantage to let him know that we've done our homework here. We've prepared this claim. We built this file, and we know what's up there.
Now, when he said done his homework, not only has Tim done his homework in insurance adjusting and commercial adjusting and roofing and things like that, Tim has done his homework in life. Tim's got an amazing story. We'll get into that in a minute, so you want to stick around. But before that, he's got a history of having karate schools and doing karate instructing and different things and coming up in karate. Tell us how that got started.
Well, it got started, I guess it was late 80s. I started taking classes at Lubbock Karate on 34th Street, John Lyles.
Yeah.
It's Clay Pittman's place now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now, but that same building. And I took some karate lessons kind of on a whim, just as a new form of exercise that kind of renewed my interest in exercise. And I just enjoyed it, and I kept going. And before you know it, I was so close to black belt that I thought, well, why stop now?
Yeah.
And so I eventually, this was at Lubbock Karate in the Nogoju Ryu system, which is more of a combat art to some of the Taekwondo type styles that are more of a tournament type style. This is more of a combat type art. And And so it's a little more difficult to get a black belt. So I got my first degree black belt in, I think it was 89 or 90, maybe 91. And then stayed with it. You had to put in 2 years after you become a first degree and to go Jiu-Jitsu. Then I became a second degree black belt. And then I stayed with it, just loved it. I competed at karate tournaments, these trophies.
Yep.
They came from, I competed in karate tournaments all over West Texas and New Mexico, and those were my Saturdays in the wintertime during the tournament season. And just that was my favorite part of it was the
Tournament.
competing in tournaments and drag all my students to tournaments, and we drag home a pickup load of trophies after a Saturday tournament. And I'm sorry, I forgot to turn that off. But I was 2 weeks from testing for third degree black belt. In fact, that day we were living in Spur, Texas back then, and I was on my way into Lubbock. I had a couple of things to do. I had an airplane rented for some touch and goes, and I had a private workout at Lubbock Karate because in 2 weeks I was going to be testing for third degree black belt. Yeah. But instead, I was in a bad car wreck, and so that was kind of the end of that road. And so that was my whole martial arts career in a nutshell. It lasted about 13 years.
Yeah. So when Tim says bad car wreck, he's not lying, guys. He's missing some parts of his body, but he still performs at a high level in business and in life. And so that's kind of what these talks are about, is to show people what's possible if you stay committed to your dreams and never give up. And so he's definitely got a never give up story. And so and I'll actually link some of that footage from one of the local news channels from way back when it happened. You'll be able to see that. I'll find it. You'll be able to click on it. But when that happened, what went through your mind when that happened?
Well, I don't know the windshield.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I don't remember. We hit pretty hard. I hit a John Deere tractor, John Deere 4430, head on just south of Rawls on Highway 40, and he didn't see me. The elderly driver didn't see me, and he turned right in front of me, and we hit going 74. I was going 59, and he was going 15, and my pickup went under the tractor, knocked the front axle off, and I was trapped under the tractor. So, although I was conscious the whole time and talking to a couple of DPS troopers, were my students at Spur Karate during that time, and they were there and watched them trying to get me out, and so I was conscious the whole time, but I don't remember most of it. Yeah, I remember waving at my neighbor Sonny Fry, who later would help cut me out. Waved at him on the lake road by White River Lake, and next thing I know, I'm opening my eyes, and I'm in ICU at UMC with hoses everywhere. Yeah, like, okay, something went wrong here.
Yeah, so that was pretty much the end of the karate for a little bit.
Kinda. It took me a year to have the surgeries. I had 23 surgeries, 20 of them at UMC and 3 of them in Toronto, where they took leg muscles and put them in my arm to replace muscles I lost in Iraq, and I had to learn how to walk again. And so that took a year. And when that year was up, I went back and reopened Spur Karate and bought Level N Karate and started teaching karate at Pat Springs schools after school. And so I went back. I just had to. Okay. I had to go back to I guess just to prove I could. But I went back. So I went back to the martial arts, but it was never the same. Never the same. I wasn't able to compete, and I could still teach a side kick. I knew the mechanics of the side kick and the self-defense and all that, but it was just never the same. Competing was my favorite part, and I couldn't do that. And I discovered surprisingly that there's just not a lot of demand for a one-legged black belt. So I could see the writing on the wall. I was going to have to do something else for entertainment.
That's funny. Not a lot of demand, folks, for a one-legged black belt. However, Tim has adapted his mindset and just a never quit mindset, and puts that into his business and success and stuff like that, and helping other people get the most out of their real estate and different things like that. And so it's a great inspiration, nevertheless, for you guys to check out once that's linked in here. But we'll go back and forth a little bit, but the story is so fascinating. Another facet to Tim's what he brings to the table as far as his business is concerned is he's got extensive sales training and sales expertise and business development. And tell us a little bit about some of the training that you've been through in that.
Sure. Well, my dad, again, he started me out in sales in '85, and I didn't know anything. All my competitors knew a lot more than I did. So I just out, I went out and hustled and just worked hard, went door to door selling. And, for years, my wife and I would stuff 40 company folders with company information. And then I'd go out the next day to the 52 towns around Lubbock, whether it be Littlefield, Levelland, Abernathy, wherever. I hit all of them. And I go to every single business in town, and I would hand out one folder, say, my name's Tim Adams. Here's my roofing company, I would hand out 40 folders every day. I'd bid 2 roofs, I'd sell 1. And I did that for year after year after year. And
40 folders a day, bid 2 roofs, sell 1.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
And then I got, of course, Zig Ziglar had to be part of that. My dad was a big Zig Ziglar fan.
Yeah.
And he got me all the cassette tapes. And old Zig and we sold a lot of roofs here in West Texas over the years. And became a huge Zig Ziglar fan. And then later, my dad put me through the Dale Carnegie Human Relations and Public Speaking course. It's a 14-week course. And I was finding myself needing to make a lot of presentations to school boards and county commissions and city councils. And so my dad wanted me to be a little more polished about that. So he sent me through the Dale Carnegie course. Well, as luck would have it, I found out in the Dale Carnegie course, you could get up there in front of the class and tell stories about airplanes.
Yeah.
I thought, well, what could be easier than that? So they liked me, and they voted to bring me back as a graduate assistant. So I came back 4 times as a graduate assistant, went through the Dale Carnegie course 5 times.
That's outstanding. So, when Ziglar came in 2003 November, were you here?
I saw him at the Holiday Inn downtown.
Okay.
That was a big deal.
All right. Right. I saw him when he came to a place, First Baptist. He came to First Baptist. So that was my first time to meet him. And so I'm a, partaker in Zig Ziglar's training as well. It's really impacted me. But that's unique. Now, you said Dale Carnegie. I know that, Warren Buffett, he said that was his best investment he ever made was in the Dale Carnegie course.
Yeah, it was really good, not just for networking and meeting other business people, but it's, the fear of public speaking it's a normal thing.
Yeah, it's normal.
They told us the statistic back then that people actually fear public speaking more than they do death. That's apparently a statistic from somewhere, but it's and it was funny because I learned this as a graduate assistant when I started coming back as an assistant instructor.
Yeah.
That during the breaks, on those first few classes, they would strategically position the PAs at the exits.
Yeah.
So when the students, if they were scared and wanting to make an exit to their car and get out of there, we were going to make it uncomfortable to do because we're standing in front of the exits. And so it really was a good course to help develop, a little bit of polish.
Yeah.
Most of that went away a long time ago, but it was good during my sales career.
So what is the importance of being able to communicate well in sales and in business? What does that mean to your business? Well,
I think it means a lot because it's one of the things that I found really worked well for me that I learned both through Zig Ziglar and the Dale Carnegie course was the importance of finding something in common.
Yeah.
With the customer. When I walked in those 40 doors every day, I was immediately looking around the guy's office. I'm looking for a golf ball or maybe a golf bag in the corner, a picture of an airplane, and or some karate reference, and if I saw that, guess what? We were going to break the ice with that conversation, and it just helped the potential customer, to become comfortable with me, and we could have a conversation. There's a little trust factor at that point.
That's true. Trust is very important. So you've had a lot of never quit in your life. Where does that come from? Never quit. You just always keep coming back. You keep succeeding.
Yeah, it's, I think it was an adaptation of how I learned to sell roofs back in the mid to late 80s. And because I'd knocked 40 doors, and I think it hit me what I had to sell, because all of my competitors had more experience than I did, and they knew more than I did back then. And so I think it all hit me one day. It was a Saturday morning. I was in downtown Littlefield, Texas. I was going door to door. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. I mean, it was snowing to beat the band. There's a couple inches of snow on the ground. I'm walking around Littlefield, Texas, trying to hand out my folders, wearing leather shoes. My feet were wet, so I was wearing leather shoes, walking in the snow, slacks, long sleeve, white shirt and tie, and a sport coat, trying to sell a roof. And as I trudged through the snow doing that, it was hard going, and I had to stop and think. I thought to myself, Tim, your chances of selling a roof today are just about zero, but they're not zero. They're zero for everybody else.
Oh, that's good.
And that's when it kind of dawned on me, okay, this is what you have to sell, Tim. You have hustle. You will work harder than the other guys. And that still, I think that still holds true today, even though I don't have to. I get up at 3 a.m. every day. I don't have to.
Yeah.
It's just part of what reminds me this is what I do. I have to outwork
3
everybody else.
a.m. everybody.
At 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Yeah. I get critique or music critique all the time from adjusters that say, "Did you really send me an email at 3:15 a.m.?" Like, yep, my day started 15 minutes before. So that's kind of a way to remind myself that what I've got to sell is I outwork the other guys in this business. If you hire us for a claim, nobody's going to outwork us. Nobody's going to work harder to get the claim paid than we are.
Man, that's outstanding. So did you start karate before selling or selling before karate?
I started selling before karate.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the selling mindset played over into the karate, right?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. Now, when you were raised, were y'all raised kind of like in a way that was like, hey, we don't quit, we just keep going? And
Well, not in it wasn't expressed that way, but I had 5 brothers.
okay.
Which I mean,
There
there's
you go.
natural competition. If you want to eat,
Yeah.
if you have to fight you learn to fight for
Yeah.
what you want, and so having 3 older brothers and 2 younger brothers, there's that natural competition that was always there.
That's exciting. So from natural competition, growing up in the back of an airplane, learning how to fly, learning karate, the scientific methods that he goes through to help a client that are proprietary to him, never quit, going through almost dying. I mean, absolute horrific wreck. And here he is today, folks. He's got a reputation based on results is kind of what I've learned from Tim. And so Alpha Public Adjusters is his company. And so is there anything that you could maybe offer to someone who's just starting out in business or someone that's in their business and maybe it's a rough time right now? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, you got to keep hustling. There's some point in just about everything. It was the same way getting a black belt into Goju-Ryu. When you were testing for your black belt in Goju-Ryu, it's an all-day rear kicking. You're getting your butt kicked all day long on a Saturday morning and afternoon, and there's a point beyond which you have to get in your mind psychologically, okay, I have to keep pushing myself. And it was the same way in sales, and it was the same way in business that, okay, you reach this wall and it just seems like you can't make any progress. That's what separates the guys that fall away and the guys that keep going and go on to bigger things.
Now, that's exciting. And he's got a signed picture of Chuck Norris over there. Did you meet Chuck Norris?
I didn't meet Chuck Norris, but he was actually friends with my head instructor, Charles Boughton. He was a former light heavyweight kickboxing champion.
Okay.
And he knew Chuck Norris personally, fought him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And so through that, I was able to get his autograph photo.
That's exciting. So our system I came up in was Texas Karate Institute. You guys were Lubbock Karate, right?
Yep.
And so, but similar overlay in some of the people.
They all have Alan Steen as their lineage.
Alan Steen.
And that's kind of a big thing now because these days martial arts has been washed down so much, but the lineage is important. And everybody that came under the Alan Steen lineage, you kind of knew they were pretty good.
Yeah. So Alan Steen trained my head instructor, who's since retired, and his students took over the business. Master Tom Downs, and then you were under John Lyles.
Yes.
Right. And so there's a lot of overlap there. And they used to call this Texas Blood and Guts Karate. Is that right?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, it was a little more brutal back then. And, and it's funny because people watch a point sparring tournament and they'll say, well, that just looks like a tag to me.
Yeah.
Well, until you get to the black belt level. When you get to the black belt level, you can hit full contact and face contact. It's not only allowed. It's encouraged and it's worth the point. You know,
yeah.
2 points for a kick and 1 point for a punch to the face. And so it was a lot more brutal back in those days.
Yeah.
And they call it Texas blood and guts karate.
Yeah.
That was before my era, you understand. But that was the thing. Those guys were just pretty. Those guys were pretty tough.
Yeah, a lot of great stories around that. How some of those guys went and became bouncers.
Yep.
And that's how they built their school, because they'd break up all these fights and people would be like, how'd you do that? And they just hand them a business card. Come and see me.
Well, it was kind of funny to bore you with a personal story. I was doing my second degree black belt test in Lubbock, and they're on 34th Street, and going along through the test, there's other people testing for other belts that day. And Richard Jenkins came in. He's a very high level black belt. I think he's a 10th degree black belt. The high Dan board, they call it, that are testing black belts. And he was in town that day and really didn't know me. And we were going, and all the way during the test, he'd stop and he'd say, Mr. Adams, harder, sharper, faster. Those side kicks need to be harder, sharper, faster. And he kept stopping and telling me that. And then after a while, he said, Mr. Adams, how old are you? And I said, sir, I'm 34 years old. And he says, oh, those are actually pretty good.
That's really great. So next question. So how do you take the discipline from the martial arts and apply that to business?
That's easy because I think there's an equal mix of discipline from the martial arts, and you know the leftover from the car wreck and healing from that. There's just I guess I'm kind of calloused by all of it, and you know I handle cold weather really well. I work long hours.
Yeah.
I work probably more than anybody I know, and you know, my wife questions the wisdom of that sometimes, but that's just my thing, and I work hard, and that came from the martial arts. That you know, just you never can stop when you're testing. To go back to the martial arts, as you mentioned, when you're testing for a black belt in the Goju Ryu, I learned this later as a black belt, and I got to participate in black belt tests. You reach a point where your will is broken, and they can see it in your eyes, and you have to be able to demonstrate that you can continue on after that point. You really can't see it in your eyes, and it's an all-day rear kicking, and your legs feel like they're 200 pounds because you're just smoked. And at the end of that, you have to fight your own instructor. That's the deal. And his duty is to break your wheels, to go ahead and push you over the edge to see if you can come back. And sure enough, I have to fight Mr. Lyles on that last fight, that long Saturday, and he was just pounding me hard punches, and I was virtually out on my feet. I was virtually unconscious, but still standing up. And I thought, okay, this is that point they talked about. And I reached out and tagged him in the cheek with the front kick, and they said, okay, the test is over, and I passed. And
All right.
so that's
Great job.
Yeah. That's a little bit the same in sales and business. You just have to keep pushing past the pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not fun, but that's where the other guys stop, and what separates you from the guys that didn't make it.
So guys, that's what you get when you hire Tim and his team. You get that level of energy and focus and dedication to absolute excellence in what they do. So thank you so much for taking the time to visit. Anything else you want to add?
No, thank you. I think that was fun. One thing I would add is it never hurts to have us come out and inspect your roof, whether you think you have hail damage or not, because I can't count the times over the years, hundreds and hundreds of times where the insurance company denied a claim on a commercial roof because they said the damage was old. And if we inspect the roof and we say, okay, on December 12th of 2025, we inspected this roof, here's photos, and we found no hail damage. That blocks them from doing that. So next spring we have a hailstorm and the adjuster tries to say, well, we're going to deny this claim because we think this damage happened in the 2023 storm. And I said, no, sir. Here's the report. I inspected this roof personally on December 12th of 25 and found no hail damage whatsoever. So we don't charge anything for that. So it doesn't hurt to have us come out and do one of those complimentary reports and just have it for your file that on this date, your roof had no hail damage.
Outstanding. Well, guys, keep that in mind. Tim Adams, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see if it recorded.